like we literally, as rehab therapists, pass that baton to the care partner, and we don't give them any training. We don't give them the
We're
support.
hoping for the best.
This episode on Life Beyond Aphasia is a replay of when I was on When Words Don't Come Easy. This is a conversation I had with Roger, who is a 9-year stroke survivor living with aphasia, and Justin is his son. Together, they host a podcast that does something important. They talk about what stroke looks like from the inside for survivors and the people who love them. I went on their show to talk about your care partner, what she's carrying, and what changes when rehab ends and the house goes quiet, and what she's been doing every single day without a name for it. If the person in your corner has been showing up and they don't know what the next step is, then this conversation is for both of you. This is Life Beyond Aphasia.
When a stroke happens, everything shifts overnight. The focus goes to recovery, speech, therapy, progress. Everything changes fast. But there's someone else in that room every single day who doesn't get a plan, doesn't get support in the same way, and is often holding everything together quietly. My wife did that every day. Today, we're talking about that person. We're joined by Genevieve Richardson, a speech language pathologist and founder of Life Speech Pathology and Life Beyond Aphasia, who's built her work around supporting caregivers in a way that most people don't even realize is needed. It's very important. This is a conversation about what's really happening behind the scenes and how to start seeing it. Genevieve, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your work and what led you to focus on this side of recovery? Thank you for being here.
It's terrific. Love what you guys are doing. So, what's interesting is for the last 12 years, I've been in this chronic aphasia space. And I worked for my mentor for 6 years, and he had a thriving practice. We had a couple of other clinicians working with us, and then he passed away suddenly. And now I'm sitting at his desk meeting new clients that even his office manager and I didn't know, and really just figuring this out. And I met this couple, and it had been a year and a half since his stroke, and he had severe aphasia and apraxia, and they were consoling me. They understood the situation, how my mentor had passed, what I was doing, just trying to triage. And it was the next day when I had an individual conversation with her that I really came to understand that the care partner doesn't get the help that they need to support the survivor.
Mhm.
And why this is so different is because I had worked in rehab, every level of rehab. You have goals and you're really thinking, what are you doing for the time you have that person? And then you move them to the next level, right? The next level of rehab.
Mhm.
But then what happens to that family, to that care partner who's holding it all together when rehab trickles to a stop?
Mm.
When they say, maybe you've reached a plateau, go live.
Yeah,
So
I'm
this
hearing it.
woman is sitting across from me. We're on Zoom, and she is desperately looking for speech therapy for her husband because they don't have a way to communicate.
Mhm.
He went home. They'd been struggling for the last 6 months. He couldn't say yes and no. He had repetitive syllables that she couldn't make heads or tails of, and he didn't know that he wasn't communicating what he thought he was communicating. So everything I've done since my mentor passed, I started the private practice, but a week after I started that, I started Life Beyond Aphasia. And the reason for it is to support the care partner. Everything we put out is to help them not feel alone, help them realize they don't have to lose themselves or give up their identity and who they are. but it's a tricky road.
So, from your experience, what do most people get wrong about what caregivers go through after a stroke?
I worked in home health for a vast majority of my career before I started doing telepractice, which is what I've been doing now. And there was always somebody else to pass that family to.
Yes.
What is not understood is this care partner was given a packet of papers at discharge and said, here's the appointments, here's the med list, here's the speech therapy and the physical therapy and the occupational therapy homework.
So
Go
true.
do it. It's all on you. Like we literally, as rehab therapists, pass that baton to the care partner, and we don't give them any training. We don't give them the
I'm
support.
hoping for the best. My family was always there, and so to me, that was the most important that's the most important thing that that really got me going, was having everyone around at all times. That was
And you worked as a unit. There's so many situations where there may not be a spouse or a partner. Maybe it is an adult child that's taking care of you. Maybe
yeah.
it's a sister or, it doesn't matter.
Uh,
So we know that working as a unit, whatever that unit consists of,
Right.
how you keep moving forward.
So, when everything first happens, where does most of the attention go and what tends to get overlooked, would you say?
All the rehab is set up for you, the survivor, right, Roger?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a system, there's a mechanism, there's a flow to it. And those of us who work in rehab, we know what that flow is and what our role is. But we don't ever stop to ask, how are you doing to the spouse? I remember in the brief time I did outpatient, many spouses would drop their person off because they have 3 hours of therapy. They have a block and
Right.
they would disappear. And I'm like, wait, we gotta teach you how to communicate with your
Yeah.
person. But they're so stressed, they're using that time when their person is safe and taken care of to go do what they got to do.
There are only 3 hours of the day where they have that time, that me
That's
time.
right.
Yeah, my wife always came to all my sessions, so she saw what was going on, and so I was home and doing homework and stuff. She would be around to help me do those things.
But if they're stressed and overwhelmed and exhausted, they're not going to process what they're learning in those therapy sessions.
Yeah. So, what does it actually look like when the caregiver starts to burn out?
Ooh, that's the big B word, right? The
Oh,
burnout. If you start thinking about physiologically, thinking about your body, and this could be for anybody under chronic stress, you're waking up at night or you have these recurring thoughts running through your head. You're just praying for the sun to go down, and when your person goes to sleep, so you can go to sleep. But then you still wake up exhausted.
Yeah.
These are all signs that you can't keep up with this. You can't stay in that fight or flight mode with this adrenaline running through your body. It's bad for your health. And then where's it going to get you if you're in the hospital or you come down with an illness? So it's important to look at these body physiologic signs, because if we start thinking about feelings, right, that's abstract. That's like, and most caregivers are not going to say they feel overwhelmed. They're going to feel a responsibility. They're going to feel like they have to do everything they can because their person is a survivor and they've got to support them or they're not going to recover. That's
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
another little important thing that's not spoken about, but these care partners say. When they're in a safe space, they will say, if I don't give everything, my person's not going to get better.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, when someone starts to really feel burnt out like that and overwhelmed, what's usually going on beneath the surface?
That adrenaline is just running through their body and they are just overwhelmed and stressed.
And do you think they even already recognize that in themselves, or is it something that sneaks up on them?
I think it sneaks up in the way of an accident, like not necessarily car accident, a slip and a fall, or they twist their back
forgetting to pick up dinner, something like that.
Oh my gosh, we're out of this prescription. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't pick it up. So things start falling through the cracks
Why do you think so many caregivers don't say anything about what they're going through?
because they feel like it's their responsibility
Hmm.
and they should be able to do this. They love their person so much, they should be able to manage all of it. But often what happens, they've had to give up things that made them the individual they are. They might have been working or early retired. They might have been an avid gardener or attending yoga.
Yeah.
All of these things disappear. If you physically have to support your survivor, if you have to help them with transfers or bathing, that's a whole different physical output, right? It's not just
Yeah.
emotional, it's that physical exhaustion. And maybe they weren't in the best shape before that even happened. And if
Yeah.
they're not sleeping, eating as well as they could be, they're probably putting off their own medical appointments.
So when we're talking about why caregivers don't always bring it up, do you think it's more about protecting their partner?
I think there's two sides to that coin. I think it's they don't talk to their partner about it because they don't want to burden. And it doesn't even matter the level of a fate, right?
Right.
Care partners don't express it. They feel you're holding up enough, Roger. You're working so hard on your recovery. They don't want to burden you. They don't talk to other people about it because those other people won't get it.
Other people don't understand what's going on. They really, really don't. Nobody knows what aphasia is. So as far as everybody's concerned, I was perfect there. I had my stroke and I'm okay. But the problem was I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. People don't understand what really was going on through me.
And they didn't see all the hard work that mom was putting in
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
yeah,
Hmm.
The other reason care partners don't admit this to other people or even talk about it, they don't want unsolicited or ineffective advice.
Yeah.
right.
Like, oh, you should take care of yourself, or you should go get your nails done, or go get a massage, or the universal, let me know what you need, right? So no, when you're in a stress state, the last thing you want to do is hear any of those statements from
Mm.
anybody because you're too exhausted to explain it. You know they're not going to get it. So it's just easier to stay quiet and isolate. Not that they want to, that's just a consequence
Right, yeah.
of avoiding those conversations.
Yeah. And they're literally thrown in there without a roadmap.
Not even, you're not told what to expect. I'm sure, Roger, your wife and your son and the rest of your family learned some communication strategies,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Questions, charades, show me. There's so much that has to be accomplished in rehab. Rehab can't do everything. But what happens is when rehab slows down or ends, it's much harder to apply those strategies to a variety of situations. Think about the holidays. Holidays are a whole other ball of wax.
It gets loud. There's a lot of people.
I'm sure if we asked your wife, Roger, she would say that when you first started going out into public with or without friends, even to a coffee store, she wanted to make sure people understood aphasia if you were talking and the words didn't come right because she didn't want you to feel bad. She
Right.
didn't want you to feel embarrassed or to struggle. So then she's protecting and trying to manage that whole situation.
So once something like this starts happening, what's the first step that the caregiver should start to take?
So I think, first of all, to realize that there can be training and there's just not much of it out there. So I shared my story about this couple that I met. And as I started working with her husband, I started working with her separately just to try and understand more deeply what she was going through, what her challenges were. And it was based on my relationship with her. And she's a dear, dear friend. I still work with her husband. I still work with her, that I developed an aphasia care partner training system.
So you decided to do this because you felt like caregivers weren't getting something that they needed.
Correct. And they're probably not ready for it during the rehab days.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're ready for it. Call it a year. If we had to put a timeline on it, probably at a year when the dust has settled and you're figuring out how do you fill up your day.
Uh,
That's when they really go, something needs to change.
So what was missing that made you feel like something like this was needed?
That she wanted this, if we keep talking about this spouse,
Yeah.
she needed to communicate with her husband desperately. She would cry on every session we worked. And I realized that if we didn't get her out of this fight or flight mode, if we didn't get her some quicker wins for communication, where she could start breathing, start sleeping, then we systematically started really teaching her about aphasia. Not just speak slower,
Yeah.
pause, turn off the TV, but what is aphasia for your person?
Right.
How do they process information? How do you interpret a behavior? If you ask a question of your spouse, and Roger, I'm sure this happened at least once, your wife might have asked you a question and you didn't respond
Oh yeah, for sure.
for whatever reason, processing, distractions, it was the end of the day for you. But so
Uh,
many spouses take that personally. They take it as a rejection.
Yeah.
And that just it tends to push spouses away from each other.
Now let's talk about your program. Can you tell us what goes into it and how everything came about?
So, working with this spouse closely, I really took to heart everything that she was experiencing and got into the caregiving literature, understanding from a variety of different diseases, what are care partners thinking, feeling, doing? What do they need to feel better in control, to feel like they don't have to give up who they are just to be a caregiver. What
Yeah.
these spouses want, they want to get back to being a spouse, they want to have a partner, they want to have a marriage. But
Right.
we know that communication and connection drift, not intentionally, it's just the nature of aphasia. So I mapped it out. And I came up with a 9-step roadmap. Technically, there's 10 steps because underneath all of that is grief. Stopping long enough to realize that there is grief for the changes. Just like a death would have grief, this is a change for you, the individual, you yourself, the
Right.
survivor, but also for the caregiver,
For
because things have changed. And so we work through acknowledging that. And then we talk a lot about identity and everything we do, we talk about it, but we also give practical strategies. How do you manage it? Sounds rudimentary, right? You think, oh, no, it's a calendar, right? Like I'm
sure.
an adult.
Right.
But when you have to take on roles and responsibilities of someone else, you need a system. And sometimes it's more than just one system that you need. So we get very tactical and we walk our folks through how to do this.
So what's the biggest shift that you see in people even after a short amount of time?
The biggest shift is that they have permission to be themselves. They
That's
might
huge.
know it, but
Oh
to
yeah.
start letting that back in
Just
is
to
a process.
recognize that. Yeah.
Total yes. Their person again. When you can understand how aphasia from the thinking level, from the thought formation level, you can have better empathy for what your survivor is going through. It helps you apply those communication strategies without personalizing it. So, the biggest change in the first 6 months of working through this roadmap is you are connecting again. You're getting back to being yourself as an individual, plus supporting your person. And naturally, communication improves. We still do a lot of communication training. We do communication partner training in it, but we don't do that in the early days. We have to get some systems, we have to get some breathing room. and we have to get some connection.
Yeah.
You have to have your own identity.
Right. Yeah.
Every person deserves to have their own identity.
Yeah.
Why is having structure and support such a game changer for the caregiver?
Because there's no more trial and error. There's no more guessing. It's structured. You just show up, you do the work. And by work, I don't mean we've broken it down into small pieces so that none of it's overwhelming.
Can you give us a little example of maybe just what those little pieces are, what the work is, just for our listeners?
Sure. So each step, we break it down. It's usually a 4-week process for each step. And we deliver a video training with a worksheet that goes with it. And then we have a live session, a live support session every week. So then we carry over what that lesson was into the support session. And then we also have time for sharing, right? What works, what doesn't work, problem solving. Plus, we also have a community. It's a private community for our members so they can share with one another. So then they have 24/7 support. And so I'll give you one example. One of my favorite tools that I created is called the ACE filter. And it's a way of depersonalizing what you see happening in aphasia. So ACE stands for, is it aphasia? Is it cognition? Is it the environment? So when a communication breaks down, can that care partner take a step back and go, I asked a question that had 3 parts to it and it was too much to process, or he needed more time to process that, or the TV's on, the dog's barking, and Amazon just delivered a package, right? Because you have to be able to take that step back and not be reactive.
Right.
So we use that ACE filter. Think of it like Sherlock Holmes with his magnifying glass, looking at being able to decode that situation so that you can make steps to make it better next time.
How does that change the dynamic between the caregiver and their partner?
Now they're working together.
Yeah.
They're not working at odds with each other. And it opens up conversation. And even if the person with aphasia can't carry a full conversation, she now can say, remember, honey, when the dog was barking and I asked you a question and you just looked at me? Next
Yep.
time, well, I will come back and ask you that question when it's quiet.
No idea that she just asked the question, but the problem was, as you were saying, 5 other things were going on at the same time.
That's why and that helps you guys reconnect.
Mhm.
That helps build
yeah.
that confidence, that connection.
What becomes possible in a relationship once the caregiver is supported too?
You can start working again as partners.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing that spouses talk about, that they've lost their partner. So everything we work towards is communication and connection.
Right.
For someone who's listening, who's starting to realize that this is happening in their own life, what would you tell them to do tonight?
Ooh, tonight.
Tonight, right
Yeah.
away.
So the next communication breakdown, this is probably the most obvious. Take a step back and analyze, why did it break down? Are you yelling a question to your husband who's sitting in front of the TV
Right.
and you're cooking dinner, clanging the pots and pans?
I think that's something that happens in our family a lot.
But when you can catch it and start being aware of it, then you can do something about it. Roger, if your wife is cooking and that's a time for when she does ask you questions, maybe you should be in the kitchen with her doing something so that you don't have that TV or that distance as that environmental element.
Right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just doing a little strategy shift.
I love that. That's such a great
Yeah.
little tool that we never thought of.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly.
Or if you're doing homework, maybe that's a good time. If you're not too tired at that time of day, you could be doing homework and she could be listening and cooking and step in and help if she needed to, or encourage you. We all do so many things automatically
Right.
that if somebody says, well, why don't you turn off the TV and bring them into the kitchen? You go, duh.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's what we do. And that's part of why the community within our membership is so important, because people share what works, what doesn't work. We share wins. We think of
Yeah.
them as roses and thorns. What was your rose from the day? What was the thorn? What can we do about it? Not everything has a solution right at that moment, but we do try.
That community side sounds really cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, about the
Yeah,
community that
that
you're
is-
getting?
We meet every week. We're face to face. Everything is telepractice. So we're on Google Meet. And then we also have a private Facebook group. We share tips and stories and ask questions and support each other. I have mentors in there. And that is a beautiful thing.
And that's where all the roses and thorns are.
Community makes such the difference. This is not about going to a support group. Support groups have their place. Absolutely. We're more structured than that.
So one final question for caregivers who are listening and who feel like they've been holding everything together, what would you want them to hear?
That there is a path forward. They could be supported in a community where they don't have to do this alone anymore. And we don't have to be in person. It would be nice, but I work with folks across the US. So luckily we have products like Zoom and Google Meet that we can get in front of one another. Yeah, well, you guys are a prime example of how families can work together and how you never gave up. You busted that plateau myth, Roger, because look at what you are doing now 9 years later.
having my wife and my family understanding that during that time, they were also learning about it.
You bring up a good point that I'd love to emphasize for your audience. You are living inside your head. You don't necessarily see the progress, but those on the outside do.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's about educating them to help them see that progress, to help celebrate that progress that gives you those milestones.
Yeah.
You know you're getting better. Because what it's about is purpose and meaning and joy. And look at you guys with your podcast and YouTube.
Thank you. Yeah. Genevieve, this has been amazing. Thank you for being with us. I really think that your message and your support for caregivers is really going to resonate with our audience.
Yes, for
and
sure.
we'll share all of your links, and we really hope that we can help build your community.
Thank you. If folks are wanting to check it out, lifebeyondaphasia.com.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank
All
you,
right. Well,
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger and Justin, thank you so much for hosting me on your show. What you're building matters for the aphasia community, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. To my audience, if this conversation landed, I encourage you to share it with your care partner. Share it with others who don't exactly understand what it's like to be living with aphasia or to be caring for a person who has aphasia. You are the unsung heroes, care partners, and we see you. Rehab ends. Life doesn't. Rebuild communication, rebuild connection, rebuild life. This is Life Beyond Aphasia.